the mighty major triad. Recently I wrote a modern jazz piece and I ended up using mostly just major triads for the construction of the work. In this video I'm going to show you my technique for creating the material for the piece and how I ended up using it all in the final composition. I'm the musical director of a 10-piece jazz ensemble called the Symposium Dectet, and recently we put on a show of original jazz compositions themed around oceans. So when I was reflecting on oceans, I thought about tidal movement. So I thought, how about I use a scale and I move up and down it like the tides or a wave, and I'll try and harmonize each note with a major triad. I arbitrarily chose C Phrygian as I generally like the sound of the Phrygian scale. It has a flattened 2nd, 3rd, 6th and 7th. So using these pitches, I played a major triad with each one, first using the scale note as the root of the triad. Then I wrote down the chords using that scale as the major third of the triad. And then lastly, I did the same using the note as the 5th of the triad. That gave me a bunch of chords to play with. Then I tried my tidal idea simply by ascending and descending on the scale. Moving the chords in parallel sounded a bit predictable and boring. So I alternated the inversion at will, just using my ear as a guide. I thought it sounded pretty cool and had an interesting quality. I didn't always start on the C triad either. Here is one starting on the A flat triad. So how did I end up using this material? Symposium Dectet has 4 brass, 3 winds and a rhythm section. This triad and scale technique has a large monumental quality, so I thought using the brass would work well. For a rhythmic feel I decided on generally using a 3 feel with mallets in the drums, with the brass ascending and descending on the scale and triads on top of it. I contracted and expanded the amount of the scale I used, trying to give it a natural organic quality. Next I wrote this melody around the triads, using the general harmony of the chords as a guide. It hovers around C Phrygian, but the major triads give it a really open harmonic quality. Being able to utilize different extensions against the chords was quite fun. For instance, over the A flat triad I have the 9th in the melody, and a major 7th over the A triad. I don't think I did this on purpose, but the melody sometimes follows a valley shape, like it's the inverse of a wave. After a solo section with some backings, the piece builds to a climax underneath the alto solo. I continued to use major triads, this time with them venturing further up the C Phrygian scale. Only this time I added the bass trombone on the bottom. These are still just major triads in various inversions. There's quite a bit happening here with the sax solo, melody, and brass triads. As before, I'm contracting and expanding the length of the phrases, working my way toward the climax. Only at the climax did I add the tenor sax to the triads, allowing me to use the bass trombone on a non-triad note. It plays a descending bass line, so there is some nice country motion as we approach the peak. I ended up calling the piece Delta Works, as the large monumental sound of the triads reminded me of the amazing large structures which hold back the North Sea from flooding the Netherlands. I'll show you a couple of other triad ideas I used later in the piece. After a shout chorus-like part, it was time for something new in the piece. So instead of ascending the scale, I tried the triad idea coming down the scale, and I think it sounds great. I have the bass and piano play a high C pedal note as the muted trumpets, flute and tenor sax play the descending C Phrygian scale harmonized in major triads. And with the triads being nice and high, I placed the melody down in the bass register with the bass trombone. So in an orchestrational sense, I inverted the idea. Just after this section, I included another variation in the triads idea. This time the melody stays on the C, which is harmonized with various major triads again. The C pitch is played by the flute, piano and trumpets. And then under this the bass trombone and bass play a rising scale. It led to some nice dissonances that seem to make sense as the melodic direction is really strong. I'd like to thank SOUNZ for providing the video of this piece. They do amazing work recording original New Zealand compositions, and you can hear the whole piece on their channel. I didn't talk about every part of the piece, so there are still some nice surprises in there. If you like this sort of thing and want to become a better arranger and composer, you may like to know that I have a monthly arranging workshop which I co-host with Toshi Clinch. Each month the participants select the topics they want to learn about. You get one lecture and one workshop per month. A link is in the description. Peace.